Hey modders, welcome back to ModifedRoll. We're sponsored by DM Dice. Use the code ModifedRoll or follow the link in the description to get 10% off all your adventuring needs. We're also sponsored by Arcanist Rum. Check them out and use code ModifedRoll to get 15% off all purchases and free shipping. Hey guys, welcome back to ModifedRoll. Hope everyone listening had a fantastic Christmas and a very happy new year. And what better time to start a brand new part of our story than the start of a new year? Our party have so far met under strange circumstances, rescued a village, investigated a conspiracy, been the target of assassination attempts, mingled with the nobles, and uncovered a sinister plot rotting at the very heart of the city of Keyrn. But now they must take word of these strange happenings to Belgravia, the human capital of Vare'Layne, and so we rejoin them now at the start of the second arc of Season 2 of ModifedRoll, entering the city. It is a brisk and cool morning. The sky is just lightening as the sun rises in the horizon. The four of you are currently sat on the wagon that you were gifted in Keyrn, and as it crests the hill you've been climbing, you see sunlight now streaming across the continent before you. Just in the distance you can make out a city built into the side of a relatively small hill, the sun sparkling across the top of the river as it winds like a ribbon along the land, cutting through the city at the lower portion of the hill. You can make out your destination, the city of Belgravia, the human capital of Vare'Layne. You have been travelling for, at this point, just shy of a month. It's been about 3 to 4 weeks. The summer and the harvest is well and truly past, and winter's cool breath is breathing down your necks. The land is just beginning to shift from the bright, fertile green to a warm and comforting amber and gold as the trees begin to change their leaves. As you all see the city, still about a day's travel ahead of you, you think back to the last couple of weeks, much more uneventful than the very short period in Keyrn that preceded it. You kept to the main roads, stayed at inns when possible, all paid for ahead of time by Lord Jace. It has been quite relaxing, to be honest. You've had a chance to finally sort of ease the tension out of your bodies. But as you see Belgravia approaching the distance, what's going through everyone's head?
Kind of mentally preparing for the task we've got at hand, and knowing that this brief respite of calmness and uneventfulness will be soon coming to an end, and we'll pretty much need to be keeping our heads on a swivel once we get there and pretty much keep our guard up. And for that, it'll probably be meditating, trying to, think of Sardiel in his head in these meditations to try and prepare himself.
What about everyone else on the cart?
I think Gilliana would be feeling relieved that they're finally getting to where they want to be. She's like looking forward to being able to make progress and like help people finally try and make some noise and find out more about what's happening, because she feels like they're finally being taken seriously, and she's happy that they're finally not having to pay for everything. Like they're being treated like heroes, which is nice and feels like they're making moves in the right direction.
It's good. I think Twilight is daydreaming, just like thinking about like if she was an eccentric thief in a palace with Sir Vincent the Gentleman Thief. Just not paying attention at all because they've been on the road a while, so she's just like away with the fairies.
Sinclair's feelings are a bit mixed. He's looking forward to making some progress with their task, but he's also thinking to his original task of heading towards the Holy Gate, and he's thinking, of this was supposed to be a small detour, but he's very willing to keep doing it. And I think he's kind of sick of the travel. It's been nearly a month. It's starting to get colder. Not that affects him, but the colours of Palor start to change and get vibrant, but then they'll disappear. So that sort of starts to cross his mind.
I guess also with Kazizal, I'll be keeping in mind, he's found one of the rubies that he was meant to find as well, and that's kind of given him a nice little, don't know how to explain this, kind of like a little motivation to get out there and find more of the rubies that he's meant to find, and trying to keep himself open to be drawn to any that he was drawn in the way that he was drawn to earlier.
Absolutely. Well, with these thoughts fresh in your mind, or in some cases daydreams lingering, you, at this point, having not even had Belgravia in sight, it has been an easy journey, but a long one. You've been on the road for weeks at this point, and now that the destination's finally within sight, you watch it eagerly as you approach, following the main road as it winds along the same path as the river. The sun rises full to its zenith in the sky and then begins to set again. You pass by farmsteads, maybe through one or two smaller villages on the way on the outskirts, until finally you find yourselves at the foot of the hill that leads up to the main gates of Belgravia. Some of you may have been here before, some of you may have never set foot in the city, but you know of it. Everyone does. Belgravia is the human capital of Vare'Layne, a large, sprawling city built onto the side of this hill. You're also aware that it's technically split into two very separate and distinct districts, the high streets and the low streets, which are populated by the wealthy and the poor, respectively. Each have their own different sets of shops and inns, temples and tradesmen, and there's usually a large common market right at the point where these would join in the sort of central market square, which is the point that separates one from the other. These are often filled with travelling merchants as opposed to permanent stalls. These would be where the travelling merchants come in and set up to sell their wares from their journeys. This is also one of the few places that those of you who are aware of the city would know that this is where the rich and poor may mingle, to a degree, obviously. The very rich would not sully themselves by setting foot in a common market, and the very poor still couldn't afford to shop here. Those who frequent the common market are the closest the city gets to a middle class, or occasionally the servants of the wealthy sent out to do the shopping for them. Obviously, as you approach, you cannot see any of this. You just see the grand white walls that make up the protections of the city that circle the bottom of the hill. But you can still see at the summit, dominating the view of the city, overlooking the entirety of the rest of it, is a large but unoppressive castle. Designed to be defensible whilst remaining aesthetically pleasing to a degree, it is made of white stone with plenty of marble making up the structure of the keep. The castle consists of the keep and a small barracks across an open training ground, as well as a storehouse full of emergency supplies. And from here, the current king, Feyn Dragonsbane, rules over the humans of Vare'Layne. You approach the defensible stone wall that circumnavigates the bottom of this hill, ending at the points of the river that come closest and technically through the city. As you see, parts of the city have actually spread onto the other side of the large river here that runs out to the sea. It is getting later in the day. The sun is not near to setting yet, but it is by this point sort of dinner time. You see a lot of farmers moving into the city to sell wares or just head there. Maybe that is, the locals may live within the city walls themselves, or they may be just coming in for food in one of the local taverns. And you join the procession heading through the gates. This being a time of peace, there is just perfunctory checks to make sure that nobody is bringing in smuggled goods. And as you approach, you see a couple of guards checking the wagons, and as the four of you come up, they stop you and sort of wave you over to the side so they can inspect your cart. Evening, travellers. What brings you to the city then?
Evening, Watchman, it's been a long road here. We're here to take up our new residence. We have the papers.
Well, moving to the city then. Do you know where where you're moving into then?
Did Jace now remind me? Was it Jace or was it Lady Asper who gave us this?
It was Lady Asper who has gifted
Yeah.
you their essentially the use of their home in the city. The Asper estate, as obviously with her husband dying, and she prefers to spend her time in Keyrn. They don't often use it.
It is the Asper estate. We've been given permission by Lady Asper herself.
You see, it cocks his head, and I was like, "Oh, right, you've been gifted one of the noble estates to use."
Yeah. We're really important people.
Very
you know.
important.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, just wait here one moment. And he gestures to one of the other guards who sort of take up positions so that you guys can't just enter the city. And you see him walk into the guardhouse. Would you guys do anything in the brief period that he disappears?
Bureaucracy, Sinclair will say as he turns to the rest of them.
Which one of us has the deed that we were given to be able to stay there?
I think I have it. Or
We were given a letter we had to take to the courts.
Got it.
You were given a couple of letters, actually. You were given one to deliver to the king, which was essentially Lord Fennec corroborating your story, and the ones from Lady Asper, which were giving you essentially not the deed, but the permission to make use of their estate.
Oh, why am I holding these? Wait, Sinclair, you're the airport dad. You take them.
Okay, and Sinclair will take them and he'll put them in his pouch. There we are. Okay, I've got the papers. Daddy Sinclair will do the talking.
Daddy Sinclair. What Daddy Sinclair?
I want that as is like Sinclair with every other party member on toddler reins, being pulled along behind him. He's in dad shorts and things like that.
Sinclair has to hold everyone's passports just in case someone loses it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I thought I would add, has everyone been to the toilet? Does anyone need to go to the toilet before we enter the city?
No, I'm okay. Twilight.
Has everyone got their snacks with them?
Has everyone been for a try? That was my mum's line before we went on a long journey. Has everyone been for a try? I don't need the toilet. Have you been for a try, though?
Yeah, you might as well try.
After a few moments, the guard from before comes out, this time being sort of fallen in behind and being led by another guard. This one quite obviously not fancier armor or anything, but you can definitely see he is wearing sort of an insignia, which indicates that he has a higher rank. And he sort of steps up to the cart and my colleague here says you've been told you can take up residence in one of the noble estates. Is that correct?
Correct, my good man.
I do apologise, but obviously with things like this, this is quite an unusual claim. We don't often hear people coming to the city with this sort of information. Do you have any paperwork to sort of corroborate?
We do. We were told to give them to the courts. You don't look like a courtman to me, Watchman.
No, you see, he sort of tilts his head as that. I was like, no, of course, the courts will carry out the legal proceedings, but this being an obscure request from yourselves, and he sort of gestures to the travel-worn, dirty group of adventurers who have just said they're moving into a noble's estates.
Yeah.
I will, of course, not take anything off of you. You can merely present it to me. I will check the information, and then we can allow you into the city. And of course, then
inside check.
Take up. Yeah, absolutely.
19.
He's being truthful. He's literally, if you hadn't fucking mentioned the estate, you would have been inside by now.
Just doing his job.
No, it's the paranoia. Let's put it down to that. It's basically what it is.
Yeah, it's just funny. In my head, I'm thinking, God, you mentioned the estate. Now I have to roleplay this. If you had just said you were here for business, they would have let you in. So, no, he's at 19. He's, from what you can tell, he's being entirely truthful. And he's also a little bit annoyed with you, the way you called him a watchman. So
he's on watch.
He's the watchman.
It was the way you said it. But yeah,
Sinclair he'll get down from the cart and he'll gesture the young guard to come with him, and he'll show him the document.
Yeah, so you jump down. I imagine you probably like roll the letter out on like the bench of the wagon, so it's like flat. And he again, like, completely true to his word, doesn't even reach a hand to take it. He just sort of leans over next to you. You see his eyes casting over it. He says, "Yes, the seals all seem to be in order. By all means, please. The courts will be closed for the day. I could recommend an inn if you wish, or you could find one for yourselves."
No, that's very kind. No, I'm sorry. We've been on the road a long time. I don't mean to be snappy like that. As I say, it's been a long journey. I apologise.
Oh, of course, and you understand with what would be a very outlandish claim. We have to be careful of these sorts of things.
Of course,
We don't hold anything against adventurers coming to the city, of course.
Yes, sorry to take up so much of your time.
Of course. Would you like directions to an inn, or will you be fine finding your own for the evening?
I mean, if you've got a good recommendation, we'll certainly take it.
Yes, of course. If this is your first time in the city, I would highly recommend, if you're planning to stay in the high streets, the Pleasant Duck is renowned for being very welcoming, very comfortable. But if you would prefer a cheaper option, then by all means, in the low streets, you could find the last stop. It is the last tavern you'll find before reaching the common market. And again, a little bit cheaper, but of the taverns in the lower city, I'd say probably the best looked after.
Thank you so much.
That's very helpful, yes. Thank you very much.
Of course, but please, I've kept you long enough.
As have we. I apologise, and Sinclair will reach out his hand to shake it in a,
Yeah, he absolutely shakes it. I will say as well, obviously, I just gave you the names. He would have given you like specific directions to the two taverns.
Yeah. Okay. We enter the city?
Yeah, you head into the city. So, are you guys planning on just heading to one of those taverns, or like obviously you guys have just reached the city? You've been told that the courts are probably not going to be open until tomorrow morning. Is there something you want to do, or is your plan just to go and bunk up for the night?
Oh, how are we feeling, gang?
I can't believe we had to spend another night in a tavern.
One more, and then a nice room each. Yes.
Can't wait. I miss my privacy. I'm so sorry, Twilight, but
That's fine.
Hopefully, this tavern has, enough knowledge, to make sure no one can get in or out of bedroom windows,
Yes, less stabbing in the night, I would prefer.
Yeah.
It wasn't pleasant.
You haven't been stabbed in a single tavern since Keyrn. You're on a roll here.
Oh, wow.
But Sinclair double-checked every window.
Have a little sign. This many days. Many days since last stabbing.
This adventuring party is 0 days without an accident.
Yeah.
What tavern should we go to? I personally feel like we all know which one I'm going to vote for.
I agree. You do want to go to the last stop. That's
Absolutely.
The vibe I'm getting.
Over my dead body, are we going to that one?
Absolutely. The Pleasant Duck it is, then.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should we go down River Riff Raff?
No! We're past this, guys. We're past this.
Let's just have a sort of night of comfort as best we can.
The last night of sort of before.
Yeah, exactly.
A full night of.
Yes, indeed.
As if I'll allow any of that. No, you guys begin working your way through the city. And this is, for all of you, even Giliana, this is the largest city you would have ever been in. Because obviously Theraseed is an elven city. It is sort of part forest, part city. This is a city. This is the largest built-up city in the continent. Some of the dwarven undercities might be a little bit more sprawling, but in terms of just structure, this is the largest. It sprawls around the entire circumference of this hill, reaching all the way from the top down to the river. And as I mentioned, it is sort of tea time. It is evening. The sun is now sort of within the city now, with the walls surrounding you. The sun is now sort of cresting. The sun is now just dipping beyond that top level of the wall, casting its shadow across the city. And the lights are beginning to come on everywhere. You see fire smoke sort of curling up from several of the buildings around you in the homes and the taverns as people light the fires to chase away the chill of the autumn air. You see the lanterns and lights being lit all over the city, like stars coming to life. And you see people, so many people, like for all of you. Like, I imagine Sinclair and Giuliana, you may have travelled through here, and depending on what route you took, I'll leave this entirely up to you guys to decide. Twilight as well, you may have come this way. It depends what route you took. I would say Kazisel, you probably didn't come this route just because of the direct direction you would have travelled in.
Yeah, I'm guessing I would feel quite,
I imagine you probably feel like claustrophobic.
I wouldn't have been in such a big area from where we grew up, so this would probably he'll feel quite dwarfed.
I'd actually say, like, with the city being as big as it is, there are still so many like tall built-up buildings around you, filled with so many people. Like, as you look up, obviously you can see that's where you're seeing all the lights and stuff, but in the street immediately around you, the street is full of people. Obviously, this being a fully built-up capital city, there is a sort of track for carts, like a full double-lane track for carts to pass each other, sort of walkways, pathways built into the side of this, and the pathways are full of people at this time of day. There's a constant stream of carts coming and going, not enough to create like gridlock, but you're always passing one, and there are just people everywhere. I would say, if anything, you would probably feel like claustrophobic as opposed to like being in an open air. There are just so many bodies here. But I'll let Sinclair, Giuliana, and Twilight decide if they have passed through Belgravia in the past. So I also just want to quickly jump in here and tell you guys about a product I've tried recently, and they're also sponsoring this episode. For those who've been listening to ModifedRoll for a while, you might be aware that I am not a full-time podcast producer, editor, or DM, as I may come across. I am in fact a design engineer in my full-time life, so I spend most of my day sat in front of a computer working on 3D models. That said, quite a lot of the time I find myself thinking about how I'd rather be playing D&D, and I sometimes struggle to concentrate on what I'm doing. I'm sure everyone's the same. You get tired, you have a lot of things in your mind, and you just struggle to concentrate sometimes. So to try and combat this, I turned to caffeine. Unfortunately, I'm not a massive fan of the flavour of coffee, and tea doesn't tend to have a lot of caffeine in it, so I turned to energy drink. I was drinking a large can of energy drink every morning to try and just get through the day. While tea doesn't have a ton of caffeine, energy drinks have far too much, and I'd go from dying on my feet to literally shaking with the amount of caffeine running through my body. To that end, I decided to give Magic Mind a try. So Magic Mind, for those who haven't heard of it, is styled as a productivity shot. Now, I'm not going to sit here and recommend something to you that I've not tried, so I actually gave Magic Mind a go. I used it for 2 weeks. I stopped having my energy drinks in the morning and relied entirely on this little shot. And that's the thing, it is just a little shot that you can just take straight in the first thing in the morning, or like I did when I got to work, settled in at my desk, I would have the drink and get ready to start the day. And I'm going to be honest with you, I do feel like I noticed a difference. I feel like I had that little kick of energy from the small amount of caffeine, being able to concentrate a little bit better during the day. The effects were immediately noticeable, especially after I'd stopped using it. And like I say, I tried it for 2 weeks. And the week after, I started going back into that sort of same rut, finding it difficult to concentrate, sort of finding mind wandering during the day. So I can say with all honesty, I did notice a benefit from it. Being completely open and honest though, there was one downside I had with the Magic Mind shots, which was the taste. Not my sort of flavour. I did struggle to sort of get used to it. That is because it is a strong matcha flavour. It's one of the sort of base ingredients, and unfortunately not a big matcha fan. But for those of you out there who do enjoy that taste, perfect. But touching on that, matcha, like I say, is one of the main ingredients, way less caffeine than coffee, and also contains additional compounds called catechins that extend the benefit of caffeine by slowing your body's ability to absorb it. But on top of that, they also have a bunch of other I want to say natural ingredients, but that is a very much a thrown around term these days that doesn't really mean a lot. But they have included a bunch of stuff like lion's mane mushrooms, ashwagandha, Rhodolia rosea, Bacopa monieri. So there are a bunch of very natural, wholesome ingredients in here to sort of give you that attention span benefit and reduce the caffeine intake during the day. So to that end, we just wanted to recommend it to our listeners, and Magic Mind were kind enough to offer us a discount code. But if you check out the description for this episode, you'll find that not only have we got the discount code ModifedRoll20, They've also supplied us with a special link just for this month, as just for the month of January, they are running a New Year's resolution fully focused promotion. So if you use this link, you will get 1 month for free when you're subscribing for 3 months, and if you then use the code ModifedRoll20, you get an additional 20% off. That's 75% off total. This link will only work throughout the month of January, but fear not, even if you miss that, the code ModifedRoll20 will still continue to work after this for 20% off one-time purchases. So make sure to check out that link to get your January and your new year off to a good start. But I am only a case study of one. So check out their website. They do have a bunch of other testimonials and feedback. So I definitely think it's worth a try if you have the same struggles I did. But all I have to say is thank you, Magic Mind, for sponsoring this episode, and we'll let you get back to the action.
I don't think Sinclair would have. Not because Haymore lies on the river, and I imagine it being the opposite direction. So I would think that, in terms of the adventuring that he'd done in his early life, it was sort of, to the northern bits of Haymore and maybe a bit to the south, but along the river as well, but never this far.
Yeah, absolutely. Liliana, Twilight?
And of course, heard the tales from the boatman. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you mean like on our way to this adventure, or do you mean like in my life?
Any time in the past, like, do you think you would come here with family or anything, or on your adventure?
No, probably not. Not like anywhere other than, not anywhere as far as like the forest. I would say that Gilliana would have been. So
yeah, actually, funny enough, because with you coming from Theraseed is like far on the western side of the map, so you would have passed through this bit of the country. So it's entirely up to you if you would have like been into the city, or if you would have just been like, not for me.
I think if it was on the way, there's no way she probably wouldn't have, to be honest. I think she would have wanted to see everything, but...
Yeah, you've absolutely... This isn't new to you. I would say you've probably even maybe stayed at the Pleasant Duck before, if that's the case.
Oh, sick. Okay, I'm a local, pretty much. This is my home away from home, guys.
Well, again, if you stopped in here on your journey, would you have stayed for any length of time? Because if you can decide. If you stayed here for like a few weeks, I might allow you to make a roll to see how much like local knowledge you have.
Yeah. Honestly, I genuinely, she would have been like chomping at the bit to have been like exploring different places. So yeah, if it was a big city, she'd have definitely given it a go. So let me roll.
Yep, if you want to roll me, we'll just call it a history check to see how much of like the local knowledge you absorbed.
Unnatural 20.
Okay. You're aware of like the majority. I'm assuming, would you have like shopped exclusively in the high streets?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to say that you're aware of most of the important shops in the high streets, as well as the 3 like main taverns. There's like small drink like watering holes, but there are like 3 main taverns that you'd be aware of. And I'll just give you all that now, because you might, having some knowledge here, you might decide to go there instead. But as well, just before we give you any of that information, Twilight, do you think you would have like travelled this way? Or do you think this is like too big for you to have come to before?
Yeah, I think maybe she spent one day there and had sensory overload, and then was like, "I'm just gonna keep going, find something a little bit more palatable."
Yeah, so maybe you called it. Maybe you got as far as the low streets and were like, nah, and then just left again.
Yeah, and like her hood was up for basically the whole time until she met these guys. So she would have just been like, trying not to get super excited and then getting super overwhelmed and just like, I'm just gonna go.
Well, as you all enter, all of you do notice that this being a major city, it is the largest human settlement, and of course, the majority of the people here are humans, but you do see in the crowds of people driving the other carts, walking along, are people from all walks of life. You see other elves, you even spot a couple of tieflings, firbolgs, even a couple of goblins at one point, sort of running along in a group together, which again, not unheard of, but still pretty uncommon to see, like, goblins not immediately being thrown out of a city. But Gilliana, as you're sort of like driving in, obviously you've been recommended Pleasant Duck, which you would have stayed at, and you would know it is a pleasant, really fairly priced. The owner is a very jovial, friendly dwarf. They will often have some sort of entertainment on, and it's quite a nice area, or quite a nice tavern in the upper streets. You would also know that there are 3 other taverns that are like the major pulls within the upper streets, the high streets. The Frowning Owl if you'd spent a couple of weeks here, you would have known that it was sort of in the high streets. It was known. The fellow who runs it wanted it to be like an upper class establishment, so it is a little bit pricier here. But because he has like the inability just to not say no to anyone, it sort of became overrun with like the internal members of the thieves, like the various thieves groups and guilds. So it became
like
known
a
as
mafia hotel.
Kind of. It sort of became the place that was known to be like, you know, patrons who aren't members of a thieves guild keep a very close eye on their purse when they go in there, but people do tend to still go in because it is very fine food and drink, a little bit expensive, but it also means that there is he does get sort of searched by the guard more often than most other taverns, because even they're aware that this is where a lot of the thieves go. The other two are the Inner Demon, which you know is it's a place where people can go to be themselves. It is run by Demi, a tiefling, and I think you probably spent a lot of time in this tavern, because Demi, the tiefling, she's a female tiefling, large, curly, like almost like dark black horns, likes to wear a lot of like very revealing leathers, and she sort of styled this tavern as a place where, you know, people can come and just be comfortable in their own skin. And the two bartenders who are... They have two male bartenders, one called Relius, who is a male tiefling, and one called Resmus, who is a male Asimar, who both wear like very like low-cut, revealing like loose silk shirts. And in fact, for this one, give me... do you, from what I've described so far, do you think this is the sort of place that Giliana would have spent any time?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Very important description. Very important description for both Relius and Resmus. They are both like proper, like muscular butch fellas. So you would know there is a bit of a gimmick. This being called the Inner Demon. Relius and Resmus have been like instructed by Demi to play up the whole, you know, demon and like angelic being type thing. And, you know, like a bartender will often sit and listen to your troubles and offer advice. They have, like, a gimmick going where they'll both offer advice, but Relius will offer often quite, like, non-legal advice, like just, yeah, kill him, just kill the bastard, why not? And Resmus is very much, no, you have to follow the law, sort of leaning into the devil and the angel on your shoulder gimmick.
What was the woman's name who owns it, sorry?
Demi, Demi.
Cool. Yeah, sure, she'd definitely go there, sounds sick. I'd go there.
You would also know it is the one tavern that is like the very few humans would go in there. Like, not that they're not allowed, but it's just usually full of all of the like other non-common races. So you'll find like fucking Firbolgs in there, Genasi, and just pretty much everything and anything. Aarakocra, gnomes, half-orcs, even like some of the exceptionally rare creatures, like you might find a tabaxi or a turtle in there occasionally. And it is the place where like the weird people, I say the weird people as if that's like an insult, but you know, the people who aren't human, elf, and dwarf would normally like drink there.
The misfits.
And finally, you would probably be aware, and again, you might have spent some time in this one, and this might be one that Twilight is quite interested in, but the last one is called the Bloody Dragon. And you know this is a tavern run by an ex-adventurer, and it is like the place where adventurers and like ex-adventurers go to drink. Therefore, it is known to be quite rowdy, and you would know that most of the furniture in there is usually very new and usually very cheap, because quite often it is used to beat somebody else with.
Damn.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, you would know those are like the four main taverns. You would know that the Inner Demon, they have rooms, but they are much more a drinking establishment. The Bloody Dragon has rooms, but again, it is normally full of adventurers and is normally very like rowdy. The Frowning Owl obviously has rooms, normally filled with thieves of one kind or another. And the Pleasant Duck is just what it says. It's just like actually, again, every time you've been to the Pleasant Duck in the past, the sign is just a little silhouette of a duck on a like still pond. But every time you've been there, the D is either freshly painted or in the middle of being repainted, as if somebody keeps vandalizing the sign.
Amazing. Okay, well, I'll... Okay. So, I have some news for everyone. I'm actually technically a local here. This is my home away from home. But I have the down low on all the best places to go out. So, personally, I do think that we would be most comfortable at the Pleasant Duck. But now this is just totally up to everyone else because I'm easy. I'll go wherever. You know me.
Oh no, there's a but.
There's a really cool. There's like some cool places around here, and now we have. And I'll relay all the information that we've just heard about the taverns. So if we're fancying a little bit of a, maybe like some interesting time, the Frowning Owl sounds interesting to me. And then also the Inner Demon is the go-to. It's the best. That's my go-to. That's my local drinking hole.
It's definitely the one place that both everyone but Giliana, essentially, it's the one place where you guys, from what Giliana has told you, it's the one place where you guys wouldn't draw looks.
I reckon that place sounds fun.
Yes, I agree. Let's go and liven up a bit, shall we?
Who doesn't love a theme?
Yes. Are we staying at the Pleasant Duck, or are we?
I mean, if they've got rooms at
They've got
rooms at the Inner Demon, stay at the Inner Demon.
Yeah.
If it's a place we'll fit in most, then, you know. I mean, I stand out quite a bit, so I wouldn't mind, you know, somewhat
Quite a night
fitting
where
in.
we won't draw so much attention. As much as I love a bar fight, I...
Flash forward to 1 hour later, Sinclair twerking on a table in his twerking trousers.
know him so well.
I was like, I don't think I said quiet, but I did
I mean...
say a good time. So yeah, let's go to the Inner Demon.
Yeah, you direct Sinclair through the streets. You make your way up through the low streets, pass through what is currently like the covered and empty open-air market that makes up that sort of meeting point of the two parts of the city. And you travel through the gates into the upper city, because it is very much like set in levels. You can tell that where it's been built on a lower, like a gentle incline in the lower city, there is a brief and steep incline, then a step that makes up that open-air market with a gate sort of protecting them, and then again another step up with a gate that leads you into the upper city, or the high streets. This is obviously, like a lot of cities like these were built, there would have been one defensive wall, and as the city spread out, another was built around it. You can see that's sort of what's happened here, and the city has continued to spread all the way down to the river now, with it almost spreading across the river at this point. And you head up into the high streets, and you are directed by Giliana. You weave through the main streets. It isn't like hidden down a little alleyway, but it is a little bit off from the main sort of shop and market area. And you see a sign hanging from the end of the outside of the tavern, a beautifully and finely painted illustration of a little sort of succubus lounging almost on somebody's shoulder, as if whispering into their ear. And you hear, not like a raucous party, but you hear the laughter and the talking and music drifting out from the tavern. There is a sort of archway to the side where, Giliana, you would know there is a stable at the back where you could take the horses and cart.
We can park the horses round back and then head on in and then see if Demi has a room for us.
Okay.
Yep.
You guys go and tie up the horses.
You guys make your way down into the stable yard.
Thanks, Dad.
You head into the stable yard. You see there is a stable hand. Maybe Giliana, you know, it's one of the few places where, again, the hiring practices are very liberal here. A very young tiefling lad comes out, rushes out from the stable yard to help direct you and unhitch the horses. And I imagine you guys grab all of your gear and head into the tavern. As described as Giliana would describe to you and I described to her, the Inner Demon is open to all, and therefore tends to be crowded with the various races from all over Vare'Layne. You see, like I described earlier, multiple tieflings, which I'd say Twilight, this is probably the largest gathering of tieflings you've ever seen in one place. You see the tieflings, you see a couple of Goliaths at one table. You even see a table, though maybe even the same ones, it's hard to tell from a distance. You only saw them running through the street, but you see a group of goblins at one table. And just various people all over the place, just at ease. Normally, again, Twilight, I imagine even in Keyrn, with how new tieflings are to this world. I imagine there was like very few times that you would have always had somebody like looking at you. Never like openly hostile, but there was always somebody watching you. You realise in this place that nobody cares. They looked up when you walked in, and there wasn't that sort of lingering gaze on three of you. Oh, they're weird. There was a look as you walked in, and then everyone went back to their stuff, to whatever it was they were doing. You look over to the bar, and you see Relius and Remus, the tiefling, and the ASMR, both sort of like leant on the bar top, sort of talking to let's say he is a...
Sorry, is it Resmus or Remus?
Relius and Resmus, Resmus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see the two of them leaning on the top of the bar top, sort of deep in conversation with a fire genasi, who you can see every so often as they're like talking to them, they're gesturing vividly, and you can see their hair, which is made up of this like living flame, sort of like Hades from Hercules, sort of like flares every so often as they get like emotional, and you can see they're very much like sort of egging them on and sort of encouraging the conversation. But as you guys step in and take all of this in, I probably should describe what the two of them look like. I've given you their names. But you see Relius, who is this like pale pink-skinned tiefling with these like short, almost like nubby dark horns, with broad shoulders and a muscular build, wearing this a pale green silk shirt that's unbuttoned all the way down to his navel and sort of hanging open to show his muscular chest. And on the opposite side of the genasi, you see this tall, pale blue ASMR with a shock of almost golden hair, almost like a halo around his head. As the light hits it, it almost seems to like shine with its own light. Similarly tall, broad, and muscular, wearing this time a what colour did I say? It was pale blue. Wearing this like light golden yellow silk shirt, again open to the nape, sort of showing off his like well-toned muscular body. And as you maybe take that scene in for a little longer than necessary, you hear a voice. Giliana, it has been how long? Weeks! And you see Demi sort of striding out from behind the bar. For anyone playing Baldur's Gate, picture Karlach, but much more feminine in terms of what she's wearing.
Oh.
Just a quick question. Out of Relius and Resmus, thank you. Which one was the ASMR, which one was the Tiefling?
Relius was the Tiefling, Resmus was the ASMR.
Got it. Thank you.
I may or may not have had the names Remus and Regulus in my head and could not shift them when I was naming them, so I irritated the rest of you with that. But yeah, Demi sort of strides out from behind the bar, so the rest of you see this red-skinned tiefling, almost like the skin tone almost so dark as to be like pitch black, but as the light hits it with the torchlight inside, you see it is in fact a very deep red, with these large black horns that curl and sweep back from her head, wearing a lot of leather, which in any like one segment would be exceptionally revealing, but there's just so many different bits that it sort of covers almost everything, but in a way that is still very sensual and revealing. And she strides out, tail lashing behind her, and she comes up to give Giliana a massive hug. It has been weeks since we've seen you last, and pulls you into a big hug.
Demi, darling, have you missed me?
Of course, my favourite customer.
I knew I was your favourite. See, did everyone hear that? I'm her favourite.
Even in this like Relius and Resmus, I'm saying it now. Relius and Resmus at the bar, they look over, they have a laugh as well. They wave as they see you come in as well. But come, a drink. Tell me, what have you been doing while you've been gone? You look like you've been up to all sorts. And she sort of steps back behind the bar and just begins pulling out like a bottle of unnamed spirits and begins pouring 4 drinks for you all. Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks very much for sticking with us. As usual, I would just like to thank Lixie B for our wonderful logo, and Jeff for all of the fantastic art for our characters in Season 2. Don't forget, you can check out more of Jeff's work on our online store, where you can find his artwork used on our stickers and t-shirts. Also a massive shout out to the Stormweather Shanty Choir for allowing us to use their song Drunken Sailor as our intro and outro music. Also a massive thank you to our wonderful sponsors DN Dice and Arcanist Rum. Find links to both of their websites in our description. And finally, a massive shout out and thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. who continue to support us in everything we do. Your support means the world to us, and we hope that we can go on making fantastic content thanks to you. Well, there it is, guys, the first episode of our second arc of Season 2. I'm already super excited for where this part of the story is going to take us, because if you've listened to some of the extra bits we do, you'll know that the first arc was very much a story I had prepared largely from sort of start, middle and end, but going forward I've already warned the guys that a lot of what's going to happen now is going to depend on what they want to do. I haven't got a fully fledged story prepared here. I have sort of points I'm aiming to hit, but beyond that, these guys are now going to be taking full control of the story, and I'm super excited to see where they take it. But beyond that, I just have a couple of things today. First of all, make sure you stick around to the end, as we have a promo for the Thorn Files podcast. That'll play right at the end of the episode. And while we have no recommended podcast this week, I am instead going to shout out some of the amazing people we got to work with just before Christmas. If you've listened to the episode before this one in our feed, you will have seen that we got to do another live show with Dungeons & Dragons the Pantomime. This year, Maddie couldn't make it to Dragonmeet, where we did the live show, so instead it was just myself and Danny, but we had some fantastic guests again. Much like last year, we had Emily from RP Geeks, but no Chamonix. So instead we filled out the roster with some other fantastically talented people. We had Naomi of the Secrets of St. Kilda, and as well as so many other amazing projects that she's working on. And of course, the lovely Liv from Three Black Halflings. It was an absolute joy to run this, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. If you haven't already, go and check it out. It was insane and so much fun, and I'm already excited at the possibility of even getting to maybe run it again next year. I also had a very exciting message just today as I'm recording this for another little one-shot that I might be taking part in with another podcast to feature on their live stream, but as I'm waiting for some more information on that, I won't spoil any of that just yet, but that should be later this month, hopefully. And finally, if you have not checked it out yet, guys, can I please implore you, go and have a look at our Patreon. We have been pumping out so many more pieces of bonus content just for you guys, and we have already got it scheduled right the way through all of this month, and we're already working on next month's and beyond. As well as the stuff you've seen before, the Explore the Lores, the DM Deep Dives. We are introducing some new content. We have the Folktale Fridays, which Pete is recording. He's sitting down and reading some of the stories from some of the folktales that he grew up with and that you may have grown up with as well here in the UK. And for those abroad, it's a chance to learn a little bit more about the folktales that were told here throughout our country's history. He's also doing some fantastic character creation, sort of, I say tutorials, but just little recordings where he goes through making a character build. And we have so many more things coming on top of that. I'm releasing some of my magic items that I've created in the past, some traps that I've been working on. We have plenty more Explore the Lores coming out. There's just so much content on there now, and we're continuously adding to it. And you can go and check that out. And, you know, if there's stuff you would like to see us do that we aren't already doing, drop us a message and we will look to see what we can fit in. Otherwise, it is so exciting to be back making these episodes again, and we hope that you're excited to hear them. And don't forget to stick around for the Thorn Files podcast promo, but otherwise, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you soon.
Hello, this is Annabelle Thorne, current head of Thorne Investigations, a paranormal investigations company set up in Edinburgh. I'm here to tell you today that monsters are real, and have been real for centuries, only they've been hiding. We don't understand why they're coming into the light now, but if you see anything, if you hear anything that makes you think you're in contact with one, tell us. We can help. I have a few agents in the field just now, Evangeline Lane Fox, Peter Anderson, Vera Bright, and for better or worse, my niece, Tabitha. Don't hesitate to tell us. If you do, you might not get another chance.
The Thorn Files podcast is a Monster of the Week actual play podcast with new episodes coming out every other Friday. If you're a fan of horror, mysteries, and shenanigans, why don't you come and give us a listen at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and pretty much everywhere else you can get podcasts. Be ready to be scared.